The world's gone crazy, nothing makes sense. Chips costing bucks a bag, you can't pay your rent. The border's wide open, white people are bad. Trying to teach your kids and everybody's mad. Twisted time, there's all twisted time.
Hey guys, we're back with the Twisted Times. My name is Dave Glenn and our fearless host and leader, Steve Baroni. We're here to talk about stuff. Listen, man, we following up on last time's episode. This is episode 2 of the Twisted Times. Episode, 2.5, 0.0512. Anyway, episode 2 of the Twisted Times. And man, there's some crazy stuff in the New York Times yesterday, of all places. What's going on in the world today, Steve?
That's probably as good a place as any to start. And we should tell listeners, and thanks to family and friends who listened to the first episode, we're getting it there. We're going to try to do 15-minute segments rather than 1 hour. And so we'll break Twisted Times up. Dave and I will probably talk for an hour tonight, but we'll break it up into 4 episodes and make that more digestible for you. Hopefully you listen to it while you're driving or working out or something. But the craziness right now that's flying under the radar is the New York Times ran an article yesterday that exposed the CIA for having 8 bases in Ukraine. Okay. Now, many of us who have dug deep into the CIA and other intelligence agencies and Five Eyes and such, we've known about those bases for a long time, right? We've known that they've been doing that for a very long time. But to have the New York Times...
Mainstream media is covering it. It's crazy.
The propaganda arm for the CIA run the article yesterday was interesting. It's interesting and it's terrifying. And I give you my opinion as to why. The New York Times runs this article to say the CIA has come clean. They're running they've built 8 bases in the Ukraine, some of them far underground, once again using Russia, used to be the USSR, but now using Russia as the reason for all of the nefarious activity. And they go on and on and on. And the New York Times writes the article like they're exposing this. This is a big,
expose, right?
That's right. As you dig into the article, buried in there, one paragraph is the reason the article was run. And it's the reason that the CIA probably told them to run it. It's probably the reason the CIA wrote it. And it is, if the House Republicans don't give the Ukraine what is it right now, 60 or 80 billion?
61 billion, yeah.
$60 billion in the bill being held up by Mike Johnson, who won't bring it to the floor for a vote. It could mean the expiration and the degradation of what the CIA's worked so long to covertly build, to keep an eye on the bad guys from forever, and and so on. So this is now, I don't call them the deep state anymore. I mean, listen, it's the CIA, it's the intelligence agencies. It's always been the intelligence agencies. They want that money. They want that money. They've used their lackeys to get all the money so far. Schumer's railroaded everything through. Mitch McConnell's railroaded everything through. Kevin McCarthy signed off on whatever he's supposed to sign off on. And now you got a guy in Mike Johnson, Mike Johnson's net worth is less than the farmer down the street. I mean, he hasn't done what everybody else has done in DC. And Mike Johnson's like, listen, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it until you give me some funding and some law around the southern border where the constituents have gone crazy. Remember, that's the border that for 3 years, the Democrats said was not a problem. And now they say it's a big problem, but they're blaming it all on Trump. Remember that.
Now that it's an election year.
It's an election year, and you've got finally people going to the border. Everybody from, Elon Musk to today, I said Biden and Trump both went on different paths to the border today. But anyways, they're used to getting their money requests rubber stamped. None of it's audited. It disappears over in Ukraine. And supposedly it's for these eight bases. We have no idea. So the fact that they're now so desperate that they've admitted to them and used their propaganda arm to bring the story to the surface, we should really be thinking about, Russiagate 3.0, what the next thing is going to be. And I got to believe if they don't give them their money, it's going to be a complete annihilation of Republicans that are in the House that won't play along. And if I'm Mike Johnson, I would get extra bodyguards. I would, I would dig in, because they are used to getting their money since the inception of this agency.
So what's the point of those? I read 8. I read 12. These secret bases along the Russian border. What's the point of those?
Well, if you look at what they wrote in the Times article, and again, you read it it's like watching football. I coach football for a long time. So when I watch a football game with somebody, I watch it differently than they watch it. When you look at what the CIA says, the reason is for stuff in Ukraine and using Russia as the scapegoat, usually for funding, you look at it differently. So what they say it is to gather intelligence on the evil Russians, to keep them from doing the next evil thing. If you're on the other side and you look at it like Putin or maybe some of Putin's allies, you probably look at it as another promise broken as to the expansion of NATO encroaching on Russia. And I would liken it to this. How would you like it if the Russians built 8 of those bases in Cuba? I mean, we know what happened the last time they put missiles down there, right? Or tried to put missiles down there, right? So they keep moving the border for what they'll do with NATO. And if you study the Ukraine, like, the people flying the Ukraine flags in my neighborhood and having the Ukraine, rings around their profile picture on social media, they don't know a thing about Ukraine. They don't know how it got to be what it is. And so they don't understand that the CIA probably orchestrated the coup in the Ukraine in the first place. And they probably started the whole thing the way they started everything. For anybody listening to this that isn't familiar with some of the influential books we sometimes will talk about, John Perkins wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman a bit ago. And he worked for the World Bank and the IMF. And he basically blows the whistle on the game. He has to go into hiding after he writes it. But we go in and we destabilize countries. And then we come in after we destabilize the countries and we offer to loan them money. We know they can't pay back the money. So we take the collateral, which is basically the country. We've done it over and over. Look at Central America, look at South America. We've done it over and over and over and over again. In countries where they don't play along, like Russia, China, whomever else, they play by a whole different set of rules. So right now, the set of rules over there, in the same way it's been since the inception, the CIA is the successor to the OSS. The OSS is created in 42. And then Truman comes in and gets rid of it in 45. And then brings back it brings in the National Security Act in 1947. And the CIA is what comes out of the National Security Act. And
dissolve September 20, 1945. Yeah. Okay.
Was it Roosevelt in 42 that created the OSS? I think it was.
That's right. It says June 13th, 1942. Yeah, it looks like William Donovan was the first. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
So Roosevelt creates
FDR. Yeah.
Yeah, he creates the OSS in 42. Truman gets rid of it in 45. And the reason there was a battle then was because the military intelligence agencies didn't want somebody else in there. But Roosevelt wanted a consolidated intelligence report because he ended up looking stupid on some things, including what happened with the Korean War. And he wanted to be on top of intelligence, maybe with honest intentions. I have no idea. Truman may have had honest intentions too. If you study deep, probably not. He was bullied quite a bit to do a lot of things. So in 47, he signs the National Security Act, and the National Security Act ushers in the CIA. Well, you know what he uses for justice for that? Is a reason to do that?
What's that?
Russia, the USSR.
Yeah.
So they've been the boogeyman for 80 years.
Yeah.
It's the same story every single time. It's the Russians. And I got to believe some of that was true, for a while. Some of it may be true today. I'm not smart enough to know that part. I know there's so much bullshit amongst that we get. And we've seen now how they consistently lie, frame people, take people out. This is no more conspiracy theory that the CIA has people eliminated. I mean, Netflix of all places has a documentary they bought out today called I think it's called The Octopus. And The Octopus is basically about how the CIA eliminates people. I think that documentary is about how they eliminate journalists that disagree with them. And a lot of it's suicides, it's suicides that involve multiple gun wounds. Think about that. Or multiple stab wounds, suicide.
Right. Shot in the heart 3 times, and it's a suicide.
Suicide, right. So you're dealing with an agency that by their very nature and origin are deceptive. And if they were doing things for good, I think we just say, I get it. You're protecting us. You should be deceptive. But I don't think too many people think what they're doing is mostly for the good anymore. We've seen what they've done with Trump. We've seen the framing of Trump left, right, and in the middle. I really do think, Dave, and I'd like your thoughts on the fact that if you know people, the Trump, for all they've done to Trump so far, you can find people on the left and the right that go, he deserves it. On the right, they go, oh, he's innocent, whatever. And it's an argument we go back and forth on, right?
Yep.
The Letitia James pursuit of Donald Trump in New York, the enormous judgment from a judge who didn't allow a jury, found him guilty early, settled on the biggest penalty ever for a law that had never been used in this situation before, in a civil case that had nobody complaining on the other bench. You looked over, the other bench was empty, other than Letitia James. None of the banks that loaned Trump the money, 0, were part of going after Trump.
They paid off the loans.
That's right. There was no victim. Everybody got paid the amount of money they were due to be paid.
Like almost every business, the Trump family borrowed money, or the Trump organization borrowed money to do business, and they paid it back.
They paid it back. And they claimed the value of their properties. And when they claimed the value of their properties in every one of the documents, they said, this is our opinion. Now go get yours.
Yep.
Same thing you do, Dave, when you go get an appraisal on your house and go to the bank.
Of course.
The appraiser comes in and says it's worth $500,000. You say it's worth 600.
Yeah.
You try to talk the bank into believing your number. It's exact same thing.
That's the way loan process has always worked.
And that's why you've got Democrats, Republicans, and others going, I'm leaving New York. If this thing if this thing makes it through the appellate courts and sticks, New York's going to be dead. And I just had a discussion at lunch today with my partner, my business partner, Dean, on a couple of things. And we talked about the Kathy Hochul comment. Did you hear this one? Governor of New York, remember, interim governor. Up there, right? She's trying to convince people it was just a one-time thing. She said it's just a one-time thing. So think about that. This is an inexperienced politician who's trying to say it's a one-time thing.
It's a one-time thing means that it's retribution.
You selectively enforce the law. You're not allowed to do that. The law is the law that you enforce. You don't get to say the same law that gets Trump doesn't get the next guy unless you change the law. So my point in going back to the CIA is I think the intelligence agencies in this country, led by the CIA and the FBI and the DOJ doing their dirty work, are behind all this stuff. Of course, they're behind all this stuff. Schumer saying the intelligence agencies have a million ways till Sunday to get you. It's what happened. It's happening with Trump. And I don't, I guess I brought this up today because I can't believe the New York judgment. And I know exactly what the CIA is doing with the New York Times article. And it seems like a rapid escalation, which tells me the only reason there'd be a rapid escalation to try to get around this global reset they're also sold on, along with a $8, $9 bag of potato chips, and everything else, they got to be terrified of this election. They just have to be terrified. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that more and more people are becoming are understanding that. I was just looking at the Kathy Hochul stuff, and asked if business people should be worried if prosecutors could do that to the former president. They can do that to anyone. Hochul said law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers who are business people have nothing to worry about because they're very different than Donald Trump and his behavior. The fact of the matter is that every business person behaves like that. That is the way you do business. You borrow money against your assets, and I think the thing that gets me, and the thing that I'm hearing more and more people talk about, is what's going on with New York and California. More and more people are moving out of both states. What's their end game? Federal government subsidies, like how do you sustain a state when you're chasing all the business people out?
When you look at the electoral votes for both of those states, it's no secret as to why the Democrats have done what they've done. And again, I say Democrats loosely. You know how I feel about that.
Yep.
I mean, it's really these globalists who have hijacked it. If you look right now for a second at Georgia, okay? Mm-hmm. If you look at Georgia, which they're trying to hijack, and they did a good job in the 2020 election of hijacking, they really only have to hijack a little portion of Atlanta to pull it all off. I mean,
because of the way the electoral votes work.
Yeah, and once you take the state over, if you get your people in the governor's mansion and can push it down, then you can get all this corruption to spread like nobody's business. We're just not built we're not built to stop a train that comes from the governorship down from enacting massive change the way that the Democrats have done. We've never thought maybe somebody could be so corrupt. We always knew they'd be corrupt. But if you look in Georgia at what Fani Willis and her crackjack team is trying to do to Trump down there. I mean, and by the way, let's just talk about Fani Willis and her lover boy, Nathan Wade. Fani Willis is the district attorney for Fulton County, Georgia. She is the woman that is bringing this case against the president of the United States, Donald Trump, former president of the United States, Donald Trump. And she was personally responsible for moving all the hurdles out of the way to bring in Nathan Wade to be her chief prosecutor. She did this. And turns out they weren't quite truthful in their previous testimony. They very much have an intimate relationship. They've been going at it like a couple of teenagers down there, and they've lied about it. And it's ungodly embarrassing for the country, both inside America, and I can only think about what they're thinking outside of America. This is the best you have to bring a case of this magnitude against the president of the United States. And that is the woman that if she were to win the Georgia case that they brought from nowhere against Trump for election interference down there, would try to stop the presidency. So if you look at Fani Willis and you look at the assistant attorney general down there, he's a Democratic operative who today, one of the papers revealed that he had a $131,000 gift given to him by a Democratic donor last year. They took a guy that's overqualified to be the assistant attorney general, put him in Georgia to push Fani Willis to make up this case against Trump and try to take him out. It was one more way they're trying to take Trump out and make him spend all his time down there, eat up his money and whatever else they can do. So they don't have full control of Georgia just yet. So they can't go as batshit crazy as California and New York. But once you have, years and then decades of control, in the capitals of any state, you can begin to push down the madness that is going on in California and New York right now.
These are the twisted times, twisted times.